Hi YouTube, Dale, Tennessee. Today I'm going to bring you along in making some canned bruschetta. I am once again going to be using the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. The recipe is bruschetta in a jar on page 223. I don't know how well that's showing up on camera, but there it is. I'll put a link to Amazon for this book. There's also, the recipe is on SB Canning, which I'll also put a link to her site to this recipe. Hers is a tad bit different. Instead of using white wine vinegar, she uses just regular vinegar. I've made this before, and I made it by her recipe. This year I decided I'm going to use the white wine vinegar. But first off, recipes both also call to use plum tomatoes. Well, I'm not overly fond of plum tomatoes, and I made it last time with the regular slicer globe tomatoes, and it tasted great. But I'm down to my last jar, so I wanted some more. I went and bought some, since if you saw my video, most of my tomatoes have come down with anthracnose. I do have a few here in the pile that have come from my garden, like that one, so I'm going to use those up. So I know that I have some of my homegrown stuff in there, but I went to the farmer's market yesterday and bought these. This is my second canning venture for the day. I already did some peach butter, but I figured there's enough videos on YouTube about how to make peach butter, so I'll show you the final outcome of that later on when I do the final outcome of this. But I'm doing a 2 Lilu Preserves canning day today, marathon canning. I was also going to do purple whole peas until I got basically sticker shock, price shock at the farmer's market at how much they wanted per pound for the things. And I didn't have enough cash with me at the time, and I didn't want to write a check or use a credit card at the farmer's market, so I thought 2 recipes is enough for one day. I'm going to get these peeled and sliced up and ready to go, and we'll get started with the brine here in a little bit, so we'll be back. Got my tomatoes all peeled and chopped up. That's an awful lot of tomatoes. Next we're going to start in with getting our brine ready. Now, last time I made this, I discovered real quick that brine was not enough. So I had to hustle together and put together another batch of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and double it this time. I've got 2 cups of white wine vinegar. I'm going to pour that in my pot. I've got 1 cup of water. And remember, I'm doubling all this pretty much. I just use these. I don't drink Chardonnay wine, and it calls for a dry white wine. So I just buy these little bottles, and these are exactly 1 cup. So I can just dump them right in there, and that way I'm not wasting a bottle of wine when I open it up and only use 2 cups out of it. This works out perfectly. So there's those. I went ahead and pre-mixed my sugar and basil and oregano. I don't like as much oregano as it calls for, and I cut back on the basil a little bit as well. So instead of 4 tablespoons of oregano, since I'm doubling it, I went with like 1 1/2, and I went with 3 tablespoons of basil, dried basil, and the regular 4 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm going to dump all that in there. Next, we're going to do some balsamic vinegar. I went ahead and bought a new bottle. I wanted a decent brand, if I can get the lid off of it. It's being rather stubborn. So we're going to put, how many? 4 tablespoons of this in there. Now we're also supposed to use 5 cloves of finely chopped garlic. Well, I'm going to cheat and just use the already minced stuff at the store. I don't have to sit there and fight with it. And I know that on the side it says half a teaspoon equals approximately one clove. So we're going to use 5 cloves. I'm going to go with 5 teaspoons, and that ought to be doubled. I like the garlic, so I'm going to go ahead and use quite a bit of that. There we go. That should be an equivalent of 10 cloves of garlic. Next, I'm going to put this on the stove, and I'm going to bring it up to a boil. I've already got my jar sterilizing over here. Get that turned on, and when we get ready to start putting the stuff in the jars, we'll come back. It's kind of hard to see in this dark pot, but this is what the brine looks like. I've got all the spices floating around. I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and once it boils, I'm going to let it simmer for 5 minutes to make sure that the garlic is really infused in there and gets cooked. So again, when we get to that point and we're ready to start packing the jars, because we're going to raw pack the tomatoes into the jars, so I don't have to worry about heating them up, which is, I think, a great thing. So I like when I can raw pack stuff. We'll be back. Everything ready, so I'm going to just kind of go ahead and use my hands to raw pack these tomatoes. This recipe calls for half pints. I'm going to leave a ½ inch head space in here. I'm probably going to do some pints on this, but I've got a lot of tomatoes, so I'm going to be kind of packing this in here. A little bit so I can get some garlic in here. It smells so good. I'd say that's about perfect. So we'll debubble and see if that gives us any more room. All these tomatoes, again, I'm not sure I'm going to have enough brine this time. I used 4 pounds of tomatoes. A little more in there. Close enough for me. Like the rim. Get me a hot lid and ring, and I know technically you don't have to heat the lids anymore, but I still do a little bit. It's just kind of old habits die hard. Alright, I'm going to go put this out in the canner and finish doing up the rest of this. I may end up eating tomato salad tonight if I don't have enough brine, because I'm not going to mix up another batch. So we'll be back when these are in the canner. Just to show you right quick. And that's what it looks like. Nice and pretty. And that's good when you toast up some sliced up baguettes, drizzle them with a little olive oil, and put some of this on there, and then sprinkle some Parmesan cheese. Oh, it is so yummy. The only other person I've seen do a video on this is Bear Prepper, and I'll put a link in there to her video on how she makes hers. It's pretty much the same. She uses the balsamic vinaigrette and the white wine vinegar as well. She didn't say where she got her recipe, but I'm guessing it was probably out of the same book. But she's been canning a long time and done a lot of videos, and it never hurts to have another reference point, so I'll put a reference in there to hers as well. Here we are in the canner. Looks like I got 2, 4, 6, 8 half pints and 1 pint. Not far from getting to a boil. I had plenty of brine. I even had a little extra left over. Got to remember when you're making this to stir that brine real good, because I noticed at the end I was getting a lot of the oregano and basil in the last few jars, and probably not as much in the first few. It tends to sink, so stir your brine really good and get it up and going. We'll be back when we are done and have these out of the canner, and you can see the finished product. Here is the final outcome of yesterday's canning project. This is what I walked y'all through with me, the bruschetta. As you can see, this is one of the earlier jars I did. I wasn't keeping the brine stirred up enough, so it doesn't show the spices and stuff as much as, say, this one does. Get a little closer so it's not too blurry. Really see it well in the pint jar. Just a little better color in there to it. So if you try this recipe, just try to make sure you keep your brine stirred up so that your spices don't all settle on the bottom and you end up with just pickled tomatoes in a jar. This was the peach honey I did. I'm gonna put you a link to a website that has step-by-step instructions. This came out of the Ball Blue book, the recipe, and he even says that he took it from the Ball Blue book, but he did a little less sugar in it. And I followed his recipe and went with less sugar because I really wanted to taste the fruit more. And in the Ball Blue book, it's just peaches and sugar. Please use pure cane sugar. Don't use the sugar beet sugar. Make sure it says pure cane on it for a better taste and safer product. But to me, this just looks like summer in a jar. I can't wait to try this. This will be so good to have in the wintertime with biscuits and toast, and just I love some of my husband's biscuits that he makes, and put some of this on there. And I'll probably give a couple of jars away as gifts for Christmas as well. A lot of butters, fruit butters, call for heavy spices, and I don't like that. The last time I bought some I bought it at a Mennonite store not far from where we live, I ended up throwing it away because all I could taste was spices. It was so heavy in cinnamon and cloves, and it didn't taste right to me. So I was delighted to see that the Ball Blue book had just fruit and sugar, so you get the true butter taste. Now, I mean, I guess it could be easy enough to add some cinnamon to this, but I didn't want it. This is such a beautiful, turned out to be such a beautiful golden color. I'm really pleased. I'll put you a link to I'm Still Working site. She did some peach honey butter, which also looked good, but she walked you through the process of how to make it. And since there were so many videos already on YouTube about how to make peach butter, I didn't see the need to walk you through this. It's out there. If you have the Ball Blue book, the recipe's there. This other website I'm going to give you a link to, the recipe there, and step-by-step instructions with pictures. He's very thorough, and you'll find a lot of other good recipes on his site as well. But thank you for coming along on the journey to do the bruschetta. I look forward to enjoying this also in the wintertime when I don't have access to fresh tomatoes anymore. Thank you for watching, and happy canning.